Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt once again from Divination Counseling Service, here to present the Ingress chart, which is dated December 21st, 2020. I also want to talk about the grand conjunction of Aquarius, in Aquarius of Jupiter and Saturn at 0 degrees 29 minutes of Aquarius. So we're beginning a new age, and I want to talk about that today. So before I begin, as always, my moment of gratitude. I want to thank everybody who has been very supportive of my website, and I'm begging people to like, share, comment, and to help this channel grow. But thank you to all my subscribers, whether it's the newsletter, the website, or this YouTube channel. I really appreciate you all allowing me into your life, and I hope that you will continue to support me and to help me build up this channel. Thank you so much. I just want to say that I too have lost a business in the pandemic, and I am reinventing myself. I've always done astrology and tarot. I don't even want to talk about how many years it's been, but it's been wonderful to put all of my energy into one subject, and I appreciate the support. Thank you. So let's talk about this. So we are looking at an ingress chart, and an ingress chart is when the Sun will be at 0 degrees of Capricorn, because 0 degrees of Capricorn is still 0 degrees of a cardinal sign. And in this case, that cardinal sign is Aries point material. And it's a chart that's done by many, many astrologers, particularly this one, to help predict the upcoming year, to look at how we're going to begin our new year, and to just kind of get a general sweep of what we can expect for the next several months in particular. Now, before I get to the chart, I want to really stress this. When you do one of these charts, I've been really looking at these angles, and I realize that some of the people that are listening to me are not in my area. So when you erect a chart for wherever you are, your ascendant and midheaven will be different. I didn't mention it on the last one, but I really want to talk about how it changes. Example might be, we're going to be looking at a chart that is 29 degrees of Scorpio for the ascendant. But if you were in California, that's for Washington, D.C., but say that you were looking at Los Angeles, California, it might actually be 1 degree of Scorpio. So I really want to stress that ascendants and midheavens are based in latitude and longitude as well as time. And I like doing Washington, D.C., and it works in my situation because it is the seat of our government, and it is easier for me to throw out comments that are related to what's going on in the government. For example, we have a 29-degree chart. California has a 1-degree chart, but we are ending a cycle in Washington. We are getting ready next month, as a matter of fact, to put in a new president who represents a different government. So I do believe that Washington, D.C.'s is highly accurate for Washington, D.C. With that said, if you're in Cincinnati, if you're in Chicago, you're going to want to switch that, because it will then put you in your area and it might be more applicable to what's going on in your life. So as I read through this today, and we're going to look at 2 different charts, but as I look through this, whether it be the Janus program or if it's the Solar Fire program, I want you to be aware that I'm going to try to lessen my emphasis on the house structure, because it's very confusing if you're not in that area. And I know this because I listen to people out of the country, and it's interesting where this chart falls in their country compared to where it falls in our country, at least at the seat of our capital. So I wanted to bring that up because I think that's an important lesson for those people who are astrologers, wannabe astrologers, students of astrology, or hobbyists regarding astrology. So with this said, let's go look at the Ingress chart. We're going to start with the Janus program. I'm going to start with just the planets. As I did before, we'll add in the trans-Neptunians, and eventually we'll move on to asteroids. But I'm really going to accent the asteroids now when I get to the dial. So we're looking at here the chart for Washington, D.C. Here's everything. And what makes an Ingress chart is this right here, 0, 0, sun. Now, this is a really good point regardless of what sign it's in, but this is particularly important because it's the Aries point, which means it already affects the world. And one of the ways I want to really lean into doing these charts so that it is applicable to everybody is to work with Aries points. So we're going to be doing a lot of that today. This chart for us has this big accent going on the second house. Now, even though this technically falls in the first house, it sits 16 minutes off of the cusp. So it is affected by the cusp of that second house. So everything here is about the second house. And that's money, but it's also our value system. And as we look at the end of a cycle, our value system is also changing. And I'm going to, again, I don't want to be political on these things, but because I'm doing DC, the fact remains that the outgoing president put a lot of emphasis on the economy and money, to the point where I really felt that sometimes they were putting money before human lives. The new government coming in has already stated the coronavirus will be the top priority, which means human lives. That can be seen in all of that. The emphasis is going to be put on the individual, the life, the individual. So I thought that was really, really wonderful and very fitting. Now, this will fall, I was listening to somebody from Australia, and in Australia, all of this falls in the 10th house. So all of this is going to have a different message depending on where you live, okay? I'm not real good at talking when I'm doing this, as you can see. So a couple things we want to look at right away. Neptune is squaring Venus. Venus is money. It's also our relationships. Now, the saving grace of this chart is that Venus is the first planet off of the rising. That's wonderful because Venus is money and it's our relationships, and it could help us be a little bit kinder. It also in conjuncts Uranus, which is surprises. So it could be money surprises, like money just coming in maybe as a surprise. It could be compliments from friends. It could be love, instant love type stuff. So it's a lot of things, okay? And change is really, really important because it actually forms this really kind of crazy form in this chart. But again, I don't want to lean too much on this midheaven, but in this particular chart, this is about questioning the future, especially the economic and financial future, which I think is going to be painful for a little bit of time, okay? The things that I really, really wanted to do was I really want to look at the aspects because they don't change regardless. They do not change. Like, for example, if I were to I want to look at, I got to find it again, here we go, where I want to look at what are the aspects going on, okay? Then for this chart, they all come up, and they come up with houses, but let's kind of jump past them. Let's look, and I don't want to go to the close stuff like the moon, you know, because it moves so quickly. Although it does square the nodes, and it is difficult to get together with people, it does square Mercury. So what you feel emotionally and what you think or you know or what you're seeing, they're in a struggle with one another. It also, in this particular chart, squares the sun, which takes away our confidence in believing in ourselves. Well, it doesn't help that Mercury is also squaring that moon position. But I want to talk about that moon position in greater depth because at 23 degrees, let me move this a minute. Let me just take it off for a minute. We'll bring it back. At 23 degrees of Pisces, it is also squaring the new moon. So this moon has a lot of squares going on, and that means that emotionally we are still, we're really kind of just trying to find our way. The beauty of a square is that it's a hard-working aspect. It's miracles can be accomplished ultimately because the ability to really kind of just work or do is so great. So emotionally, it does give us some opportunity to heal. The other thing I want to talk about, 23 degrees is really important. Look at that at 23 degrees. Now, this Mars is actually trining the new moon, new beginnings. The shots have started with the new beginnings. I thought that was kind of interesting that the day before the new moon, they send out the medicine. So we know that that's good, that's trying, that's great. But we're not ready for that yet. Not enough people will be vaccinated. Not in this time period that this is going on. So there is still that struggle, okay? Jupiter and Saturn are about healing. So we're going to be healing because we're going to redefine ourselves, the Pluto that's there. We're going to be thinking a lot about it. We're going to be thinking a lot about ourselves. We're going to be thinking about that transformation. We're going to be thinking about what we value in life. Again, especially those of us on the East Coast. This will change depending on where you live. However, for right now in Washington, that isn't going to change because in Washington, it is going to be about the value system and what's really important. And that's going to be a biggie. Now, I'm going to add in the trans-Neptunians because I always do. But I want to point out, as we get into this, they are not going to, they just spread out the chart. So they give us more to look at. Now the Adamitas here is in opposition to Venus. And I do want to point out that that can make people a little bit colder, a little bit more self-contained, more focused. So they're not as, they're so into whatever it is that they're not, they're distant, I guess, is because Adamitas is, compression. It's indicating that we should watch our money. Even though it's not in a bad way for Saturn right now, it's not. It's actually in a sextile, an opportunity. It does, that Adamitas, you're still not going to be able to, you're going to have to really watch your money. You're going to have to be careful with your spending. Also, it's interesting because we talked about kindness and we talked about compliments. And I feel like that could be, I think we are, but I also think that we're not because of the Adamitas. In this particular case, is Adamitas to the other person. Let's just look at the fact that a new government's coming in and the first government's not even acknowledging it. Doesn't get more Adamite than that. So there's a little example of Adamitas there. And I kind of wanted to, we're learning. That's what this is all about. This is about learning. So that's real important right there. And that is probably of all of these. The other one here is Cupido, because Cupido just put that all on steroids because this is an organization. Remember, Cupido is your family, it's your organization, it's buildings, but it's the things that we're associated with. And it's hung up with the Mercury and the Sun, and it's, in this whole place of where other value systems are changing. And the value systems that are changing could be affecting whole groups of people. And let's use the government again, for example, a whole new government's coming in. So that fits Washington, D.C.'s chart. That's why it's easy to do that. Hey, there's still oppression there. We're still oppressed. South Node. But it's at least healing with Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter and Saturn together, and we'll talk about that more, but Jupiter and Saturn together is work. We're working really, really hard. We are, all of us. We have to reinvent ourselves. We're stressing out. We're losing sleep. I'll talk about that later. So all of that's really important. I also want to point out the importance of how that Pluto is directly squaring that Mars. That's a tough one. Because Pluto is beyond our control, people. I mean, we don't control Pluto, ever. We do, however, control Mars. Mars is our energy. In this case, fifth house, self-expression. I mean, it's our energy. Pluto are those things beyond our control. Like, for example, how your self-expression could be curtailed because of debts or bills. I think that's pretty appropriate too, because of that Mars being square Pluto. Pluto is like transforming. It doesn't care. It doesn't take prisoners. It just does what it's supposed to do, and it's going to do it whether you want it to or not. And right now, we're trying to buck up against that change. Many of us are. And, I am one of those people that had to reinvent myself. I'm doing it right now with you. So it is an opportunity for us to grow beyond our expectations. And Pluto is making it so. So we don't want to struggle with it. That 23 degrees, though, is just unbelievable how much it keeps showing up in everything and how it's going to affect anybody who has anything at 23 degrees. Because in the astrology that I study, we call that a golden triangle. If everything's at 23 degrees, it is talking to each other. And that means it's valid. So I did want to bring that up. Now, I'm going to move on because I've been making these a little too long. And I do want to show I'm going to come back. But for right now, I want to move on into solar fire. And I'm going to look again, not this chart. I want to go right to the real one. I've been playing and playing and playing. So excuse me for my play. I like to work with a lot of charts. You should have seen this first video. I'm almost glad it didn't take. I don't know that many of you would have been able to follow me. It was just too crazy. This chart again, now this is, based in, I'm a few minutes off because if I go even earlier than this, it shows that it's 29:59 and we need it to be 0, 0, 0s all the way. So a few minutes off, not much, but it's a few minutes. Here we have our enemy. This is a full chart. I got all my wheels on here. And I want the asteroids on here. I want to look at a lot of the stuff that is coming up around this Aries point sun. Okay. And this is where I want to start introducing or working, and you can tell I was working with something else. I've done this whole video already. But I really feel that there's a couple of things we need to look at in this chart that are really, really important. Let's go all the way down to the bottom where we look at that Jupiter ascendant. Oh God, that's so beautiful. That means that regardless of what's going on, and there's a lot going on, and I'm going to get to it in a minute, but we're cheerful, and we're expanding, and we're doing a lot better. We're healing. Okay? Wonderful. Very, very wonderful. Now, I do want to point out a few things here. Let me get to the exact point because more things kind of get there. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. There it is. Okay. The Jupiter ascendant kind of went away, but believe it or not, it's still in there. Okay. You'd almost, this stuff is so amazing. You got to continue to kind of look on either side. They're all applicable, but I did like that and I wanted to show that. So I'm glad it popped up. Here's what I'm really going to be talking about with you, though, is this Mars and Venus. We saw them in our chart, and we know that Venus is literally not far from the ascendant on our chart. But in this is the world chart, because this is going on in the world. And this is where we're going to start looking at some of the asteroids in this part, even asteroids that are on my list that are not on here, so that we can begin learning more about the asteroids. I want to really make it a focus of asteroids because I'm noticing from what people are viewing that it would even behoove me maybe to republish or reset out some of the asteroid list where I just talk about asteroids on the whole thing and maybe go through that again. Go through some of those again for those of you who are really interested in the asteroid. That's what I'm mostly excited about with this because the amount of detail we're going to be getting is going to be shocking. Okay, I'm doing the general right now, and we can see that Venus and Mars as planets will be showing up in that Aries point. Okay, they're in the axis. But let's get to the meat here. So is Poseidon, and this is news. This is also propaganda, so be very careful what you're listening to, although it's also educational. But here we have Hygeia. Okay, with Hygeia is that the Thucydides, Thucydides, so it's Thucydides or Thucydides. I don't know how to say it, but it is viruses, pandemics to be exact. And we have it with Hygeia. We're down here at the Aries point, and so we know that we're still strongly affected by that health asteroid. I should put more of my health asteroids in here. I actually have really limited, I usually put the personal asteroids in here rather than the health asteroids, but the health asteroid list is much longer. Actually, it's a couple pages. But this Aries point does feature these points. Now, it also, as we know, brings up Mars. So Mars is 23. It's actually a little bit less than that. It's actually closer to that, okay, for real. But if you look at even 23, which is only 30 minutes out of the Aries point, you can see the Zeus Pluto, watch for inflammations with Zeus Pluto, particularly in your stomach. I just thought I'd throw that out there because Zeus is inflammation and Pluto is digestion. I do study health stuff, so it's in there. And then you have Sirius over here not far away. Again, I really think people are having stomach problems right now. I know I personally am. Anybody that has the tendency toward peptic ulcers, this is not a great time, okay? We're not digesting well here. So just our anger, our restlessness, our aggressions are all causing some stomach issues. So we really want to be concerned about that. And we want to watch eating too many sweets with Venus and Sirius. That's sweets. That's cakes and pastries and, puddings and all the really fun stuff that people like to eat to make themselves feel better. So be careful. Now, 2230 is where the actual point, Aries point is, which there's a Phaethon there. Phaethon is vehicles, okay? It doesn't have to be a car, though. And, here again, we're looking at vehicles which could come as new beginnings. So it's vehicles to have new beginnings, to begin anew. And it is 23.5 on my paper, which I think it's just right in there. But that Mars, I was looking at Mars again. But look at this, beginnings are going to require decisions. People have to really make some decisions here. And I want to point this out because this is critical. And it equals over here, and I'll get to it more. It'll pull in, it pulls a lot of this in when we get to the lineup between Jupiter and Saturn, which I will in a second. I'm not going to do it on this chart. I'm actually going to do a separate chart where it's exactly 29 minutes because we can see a lot better. So here you have Aragon, okay? Aragon is in there. I hate to say it. Aragon is suicides, it's self-destructive behavior. It equals, Poseidon, and it makes me think that people are listening to things and then they're being self-destructive. Really, we need to settle down. Remember I said be careful what you're hearing, particularly things maybe even related to this pandemic. Be careful because this is kind of dangerous to be here. It could also mean we're hearing more about mental health issues, which again, because of Psyche and Ophelia being affected by the Jupiter-Saturn lineup, which is, even if I were to go right here, look where it hits, overreactions. Could be very self-destructive to people. See that? Look at that. Pulled it right up. Mercury is there. I think people are encouraging it. I think that it's being encouraged through the media, through the outgoing president, perhaps even. Be careful. Don't listen to that. You will destroy yourself. This is not the time to go back to business as usual. This is not the time not to listen to your to your officials. I know that people are thinking, I'm not closing down my restaurant. I need to make money. Well, here we go again. What is more important? The lives of people or their money? And I will say that what we don't know about this disease is that some people do have long-term effects. Okay? It just is what it is. Even people that don't have symptoms seem to have lost their taste and smell. So that is something to really be considered in all of this. Now, I'm going to move it to exactly 22:30, okay? Just because it pulls up, this is what I wanted to see. It's 22:33, regardless. It's right in there. Here's our ascendant Jupiter again. Remember, that's the vertexual ascendant, and then we have the equatorial ascendant. So we have all these ascendants, but yes, Jupiter is there. It looks great, but we still have a health issue. And there's a lot of pressure on authorities with Volcanus and Kronos, which is what I really wanted to show here. That we really do, they're under pressure. They're putting pressure on us. And this could be anything. This could even be on your job in the next several months. So that is, and it is the calling or the job with the ascendant showing up here. Adamite shows up with the midheaven. Again, we don't want to use those angles so much, but remember that Adamitus is also restrictions, compressing, and delays, waiting. As a matter of fact, I really want to point this out. In this chart, because this won't change going from one place to another. You see the same things here. I'm going to go through all the asteroids in a second, but look at this. Adamitus, okay, which is, oh, here we go, up, up, up. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. It's not going to where I want it to be. Okay. Adamitus, oh, it's down here with, it's with partnerships. Okay. I believe it's right around. This is what's so tough about doing this wheel. Where's Adamitus? 1 degree 35. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. So it'd be 1 degree 35 right here. Okay, so Adamitus is our restrictions, and it equals partnerships and Hera. And so we're confining ourselves to one-on-one relationships or smaller groups of people when you see that, okay? Not far from Adamitus is an asteroid that's called Cassandra, okay? Cassandra could even be that some people, it's that whole idea of you're getting advice to wait. You're getting advice to delay things. You're getting advice. It's not far away from it. It actually makes a bigger appearance. This is the other part, hard part, finding it. Nemesis is going to be that there's so much going on, or there's so many people not listening. Let's go back. But just to point this out, this Cassandra is about, and it's coming with the trans-Neptune, trans-Pluto, which means it's kind of, it feels to us like it's out of bounds. It's like we're being told to wait, but it's like, how long? Okay, so just so that you know that Cassandra plays into that whole Adamite, wait, hold up, delays type of thing. So what I wanted to do before I get to the other chart where I'm going to really look at the axis of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, I want to talk about this point right in here, okay, where you see these beginnings and this decision. We're going to talk about that. And the 730, which would be a little bit higher than Venus, but about where Venus is. These are the Aries point. You can see the cross. You can see the cross, okay? The cross is all Aries point related. All of those points equal the Aries point. So we're looking at over here with Venus, Crone, which is like Kronos. It's the authorities, but some authorities did not do things maybe correctly, or maybe we're not happy with it. It just feels like things are going backwards. And the authorities are causing things to go backwards. That's what it feels like. I don't think that that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't judge what's going on. But remember that initial chart. Let me go back. I really want to go back here. I want to go back to Janice. Look at the original chart and remember that we're oppressed, we're changing here. And it really is about finding things out. Mercury hearing a lot in that zero deep. That's also the Aries point, by the way. Let's go back to our dial. So Mercury is up there at the Aries point. Here it is, actually. And so you've got all these things kind of congregating there. So we're hearing a lot from authority figures. Some of the things we're hearing will feel like it's going backwards. Some of the things that we're hearing, I think, are related to maybe mistakes made by people and authorities too. So, or, things that were not done correctly. Let's put it that way, because again, I don't want to judge, no judgment. The asteroids here, though, we're looking at not far away from the Aries point, either up here or down here, are other health asteroids. So it's getting reaffirmed, which always happens with astrology. Remember that we have our Thucydides or Thucydides right here, okay? The other things that are in the Aries point would be that we're becoming very conscious of things that maybe we weren't conscious of before. I don't know, maybe it's all the downtime, maybe it's just being stuck and just feeling like, wow, but our consciousnesses are tuning up. We are, the age of Aquarius is about the ascension. And the only way to ascend is to become more conscious. Well, it's happening. So that confirms that. It's retro, you may not realize it. Now, I had mentioned sleep issues. Well, one of the sleep issues is that we have hypnos here, but we also have in the, I believe it was, it's in the mutables over here, right in here. So we have a nice square right in here of somnium. Insomnia, somnium. Okay, sleep is an issue, but, and it is for everybody. I mean, I myself have been noticing, so that's actually one of the things that are going on. But with that comes, Virgo, it's in Virgo. With that somnium, it's not in aspect to the Aries point, but there is that Dolores. I just feel like if things get worse, you could get sick, because somnium is really close to Dolores, and Dolores is like illnesses or things getting worse. And if you don't catch up on your sleep, or if you don't make an effort to really utilize any opportunity you have to sleep, you would be putting your immune system in a vulnerable place, okay? And that is close enough that stuff would play a role. We are also looking at Henderson at an Aries point here, and Henderson is that we are to be antisocial. So I thought that was really interesting in light of what's going on. Just like I saw in, I believe it's Aquarius, yep. The facial mask, the mean, mine, however you say it, the German word for face is down here. So we are definitely still going to be wearing face coverings, at least for the duration of this chart, and we need to, because not to wear would be Aragon, self-destructive, okay? Wanted to bring that up. Wanted to bring up about the sleep. The other factors, Venus, as we know, is in there. We already discussed that. Iyengar is showing up with Mercury, and so one of the things that Iyengar is one that I use. I don't even know if other I'm a yogi. He is the one that created the initial structures for yoga. And so to me, I look at Iyengar as structures, and one of the things we're going to be thinking a lot about is structure, or how to structure things, or how to be more structured. But it is thinking a lot about our structures, okay? That is definitely in this astrology. The other things that are not far away, when you get into, for example, this is about, I like to stay within a degree. If you go out a couple of degrees, like a degree or two, it gets more complicated because Arachne pulls into all of this. But Arachne is actually sitting with Pluto. So the reason why I wanted to talk about it, Pluto is 23 degrees some minutes. So it's still kind of there. And because it's Pluto, I'm going to leave it there, which does mean that Arachne comes in. And it's referring to the fact that all of these things that are out of our control have gotten very complicated because Arachne is complications. But it also means that a lot's going on the internet. And I can tell you that this morning, one of the reasons I don't have the first copy of this is because I've had computer problems. And it started with an internet issue. So not surprising, seeing that there. Maybe it's the use of the internet. Maybe the internet is getting very, very busy, and that could be a problem. So as we move on here, we're looking at structures, which I went through. Okay, here we go. Phaethon was in there with coin. This is what I want to talk about. And then I'll jump to the next chart, but I have to get this in. Coin is over here. Okay, so in all this mess, I think it's right here. It's right. So coin is actually between Mars and Phaethon. Here it's telling us money is a vehicle. Money as a vehicle. And I think that that is extremely telling. It's a vehicle to make decisions. It's a vehicle to start new beginnings. Coin, money, it's very much in this chart. The interesting thing is that we're shutting down, which I had predicted would happen, and I predicted it will last couple. I'm not so sure how people are listening, though. I intend to listen. But the other things that we're talking about here with money and the complication of it, the government did just finally pass some relief for at least those people who are on unemployment and some help to our economy. And I do believe that could be seen by the Venus, Uranus, which I showed earlier, and I'll just quickly go back there. The Venus, Uranus, and, oh, yep, I'm in the right chart. Okay, Venus, Uranus. Okay, that there is some improvement there. Definitely want to look at that. So the decisions are based on all of that, which I think is really important. This over here talks more about sleeping and getting sleep and being healthy. Right outside of it, for me, is this taking care of yourself, caretaking, and food. And food issues, we are going to hear a lot about. And that's why I say to people, you're so worried about what's going on, don't go to restaurants because you think you should patronize them. What you really should be doing is donating food, donating money. And, you know, if you have it, you know, and I'm a takeout person, you know, so I'm like, what's wrong with takeout? I will just tip the same on a takeout. I'll tip my 20% because I know that that business is really suffering. So here we could use money as a vehicle, money as our vehicle and a way to make decisions. And, you know, not to make money the main source. Remember, we're trying to have a better value system with all of this going on. The virus is to change us as a society. We want it to change us in a more positive way. So I wanted to put that in there. Now, I'm just going to spend just a few minutes looking at the grand conjunction. All right. Now, well, we could look at the chart. I'll just show it. But I got to be honest with you. And what I'm looking for is right here. It's the 29 degrees Saturn and Jupiter, but this is like 105. This is like when it comes in. It sits there at 29 degrees till about 2:45. So it goes through, I think, a whole sign. Yeah, it starts here at the later parts of Aries, but then it goes all the way through. And this is, you know, for my area, it goes all the way through to the ending of Taurus. So that's a long time. Or is it the end? Yeah, it's the end. It goes, yeah, it's about 2 hours. So it goes through this whole thing. So it goes through a whole house. So that's going to be true regardless of where you live or what you're doing. I did want to point that out. Now let's look at this. That was an axis point. I can tell I was doing this earlier. We're going to go to, here we go, 29 degrees, right to it. And look at right away, it equals overreactions. Overreactions are not far from psychic wounds, our childhood memories, things that were wounded, right? So be careful of overreactions. It is about the Pluto-Uranus, which is huge in the actual Ingress chart too, that transformation and change are what this is all about. And this is theoretically the beginning of the air age. Some people call it the beginning of the Aquarian age, which is actually a millennial. That's a bigger age. The air age, though, is still a 200-year age, and 20 years of it will be Aquarius. So it is huge. What we're going through is very huge overall. So I did want to point that out. Now, if I go into my, here we go, my trusty paperwork, because I'm doing the same day, all of these things are relatively close to the same position. We're only talking about, what, 5-6 hour difference. So maybe 7 hours tops, but we're not talking a very big difference in our day. We're not even talking a half a day here. The chart for 29 degrees of fixed, okay, brings in things like academia, learning. Yes, we're all learning. I'm learning. I learned a lot this morning. That's a really big thing. And the other side of that, and we could go out this far, would be Hephaestus, which is, you know, things that don't fit. But it's just there. It's sort of slipping out, but it depends on what kind of astrology. If you're an astrologer that would go out 2.5 degrees, then Hephaestus is in there, and you may be very aware of things that don't seem to fit, people that don't fit together, odd couples, things of that nature. Now, in this axis, we're also looking at the 8 degrees of and 23 degrees of fixed. So in other words, and this one is, let's see what that is. That's a 29 too. So it would be 15 degrees, 29 minutes. But again, it could go out. So Ophelia, as we know, is right there. Get pulled right into that puppy. And then you're also looking at wanting to be fair. You're looking at things like bracing yourself, because energies are just going to get really scattered as we head into this new age with Aurora there. Eos was in an interesting place also, way down here at the very end of Aquarius, but doesn't show up in the Aries point within those two chart. So I'm going to stay with Aurora, which means the same thing. It's scattering of energies. You better get up early in the morning. Sleep issues are still in there, and this one really pulls in that. Nope, I'm wrong. No, it's not. Sorry. Good. It's really why God me. Who's going to be saying that during this time? Yeah, you get a little confused because of the way this works. The 8 degrees is here. Sleep is still an issue, though. Berners-Lee could come in, which is internet. We're going to be using a lot of internet. Internet showed up, and I went to the original because of Arachne. So the internet is very big, and using the internet is very big. It also looks like we have to be careful, and I've said this before, of our expectations. Weasley's in there. We have some faulty perceptions, and many of us, and we will have to look at those at some point. Credo is in there. We're looking for things that are credible. When we don't believe things, we're looking for something credible. You know, the outgoing president didn't have any credible information to say that there was fraud. The whole concept of credibility is going to come into play. The Dalius is also, I think, huge, because one of the things that I feel will play a factor in all of this is how clever some people have been about escaping their responsibilities or escaping the consequences of their actions. And that is hugely highlighted in the Saturn. When you look at Saturn and you look at Jupiter and you put them together, and this is the beginning of accountability. I'd like to think that people would be more accountable to their behavior with this energy. But as you can see, we still have equatorial ascendant with the health asteroid. We're still dependent on the news, but we are getting educated. Academia is falling in the I believe it's this point. Yeah. And the other thing is de-arrest. We're trying to stop things, stop stuff. And that actually is going to show up in this side right here. We're really trying. That's on the mutable end of things. But there's a lot. When you start getting into the asteroids, the stories get more complicated. There's a lot more to them. It just brings up so many things, particularly if you do that 2230 angle. But I hope this helped. I hope that we gained something through this experience. I hope that the asteroid part was interesting. I am going to lean more on going through asteroids. I think that there's a lot here that we could learn in terms of our own astrology and how we might add more details into those charts. And whenever we do charts, we really want to do them without judgment or without expectation. That would probably be the best thing I can leave you with today. So let me come back just to say my goodbyes. So I'm going to get the glare out of the way. So I just want to say thank you again. And I want to also throw out that I would welcome anybody in the comments or even directly getting a hold of me through the website. I have a message service there. Questions that you might have, particularly regarding the asteroids, or more things that you might like to see, particularly regarding trans-Neptunians and asteroids, because other astrologers don't use them as much, especially not online, it doesn't seem. I don't seem to find anybody else who's doing this kind of work. And it's in some cases, they're not even using too many of the extra charts. So they're really trying to stay with the basics, which I think is wonderful. But I think there's room for more. So with that said, as always, happy reading.